People call the fear of clowns childish because they only remember birthdays and bright tents. They forget how unnatural a painted smile really is. Joy is supposed to move with the face. A clown keeps the same grin while the eyes stay cold, watchful, and separate, as if happiness were glued on after something human had already left. That difference matters. A normal face warns you when emotion changes. A clown makes anger, amusement, and emptiness wear the same expression. You are forced to guess what hides behind the paint, and fear grows fastest when the thing looking at you appears cheerful while deciding whether you should feel safe at all. The first flyer appeared on my apartment door on a wet Tuesday night. No circus name, no date, no venue, just a faded clown standing beside an empty carousel and one typed sentence beneath the picture. He remembers the ones who laughed. I tore the paper down immediately, but the tape stayed on the wood like a stubborn fingerprint. That should have been nothing. Yet the hallway changed the moment I read it. The fluorescent light above the stairwell buzzed like an old speaker. The paint smelled damp and sweet. Every step toward my own lock felt staged, as if someone had already rehearsed me entering alone while a smiling audience waited somewhere just behind the walls. Our town used to hold a summer fair by the river. People over 30 remember the rides, the sugar smoke, the cheap music, and the clown near the game stalls. They never describe him the same way twice, except for one detail. He hardly moved. Children remembered the costume. Adults remembered how often he seemed to be facing the families who were trying to leave. My mother told me the clown never performed in the ring. He stood beside the prizes and watched people win stuffed toys. He did not wave, he did not joke. He only smiled and turned slowly, as if he already knew which child would ask to go back, which parent would say yes, and which family would not all return together. Then came the river accident. Officially it was panic, bad wiring, crowd confusion, and rain. Unofficially, everyone who was close enough remembers the same impossible image. While people were running and shouting, the clown was standing beside the carousel with his hands folded, looking pleased, as if a performance had finally started on time. The fair shut down after that season. The rides were sold, the tents were stripped, and the field was left to weeds and river fog. Yet the clown did not disappear with the carnival. People claimed they saw him in parking lots, church festivals, grocery windows, and schoolyards after dark, always smiling, always still, always gone before anyone reached the place he occupied. The first new sighting in my life was small enough to dismiss. I saw a clown face in the black reflection of a bus window while riding home after work. White forehead, red mouth, curly shape around the head. I turned fast, expecting costume fabric and a human body. But the seats behind me were almost empty and nobody looked amused enough to belong to that face. The second came from my neighbor across the hall. She said someone knocked lightly on every apartment door at 3 in the morning, slowly moving down the corridor one unit at a time. When she looked through the peephole, she saw only a red clown nose taped to her frame and a grease-painted smile curving across the wall beside it. Management blamed teenagers and cleaned the wall by noon. The paint vanished, but the smell stayed. That evening the corridor carried the odor of stale popcorn, wet velvet, and powder makeup left too long in a closed box. It did not smell fresh enough to come from a prank. It smelled remembered, as if the building had been storing it for years. Then the fragments began. A squeaking shoe sound behind me that stopped when I stopped. A red balloon trapped beneath the stair rail where no children lived. A tiny bell sound in the frozen food aisle of the grocery store. Each detail was weak on its own. Together they felt like someone rehearsing an entrance and enjoying how slowly I understood the script. Fear becomes harder to fight when it discovers an old memory waiting for it. When I was 7, I used to leave my closet door open a few inches because I believed something inside it smiled when the doors were closed. I had buried that thought so well I almost doubted it belonged to me, until the flyer on my door made the memory stand up again. My father once checked the closet to prove it was empty. He turned on the light, moved the boxes, shook the hanging coats, and laughed when he found nothing. But after he left, I looked back at the narrow dark gap and saw a sliver of white where no white object should have been. Something like paint, something like teeth. I never told anyone because children learn quickly, which fears adults punish with humor. Instead, I made rules. Never sleep facing the closet. Never look directly into the darkest section after the lights are off. Never trust a smile you do not see arrive naturally. I forgot those rules for years. The clown did not, remembering that would have been humiliating if the present had not offered proof. Along the inside edge of my current closet door, at adult eye level, I found a fresh white grease paint smear and a tiny crescent of red beneath it. Old fear did not return. It simply resumed walking from the exact place where I had abandoned it. For 3 nights after that, I heard faint laughter through the apartment walls. Not full laughter, not even human laughter in the normal sense, but a rhythmic, breathy sound like someone trying not to laugh while failing. Whenever I stood to locate the source, the noise stopped before I reached the hallway, as if it preferred me listening from the vulnerable position of a bed. I checked with both neighbors. One was away visiting family. The other said she heard the same thing but thought it sounded like an old TV's laugh track played too low to identify. That description made the noise worse because it implied performance, timing, and an invisible audience enjoying something inside the building that had not been shared with us yet. On the 4th night, I recorded the sound on my phone. In the morning, the file was almost silent except for one sharp squeak near the end, the exact sound a rubber sole makes when turning slowly on polished floor. After the squeak came a soft voice, too low to place, speaking a single word with perfect amusement. Again, I deleted the file immediately and hated myself for doing it. Fear makes people destroy evidence because certainty can weigh more than panic. Without the file, I could pretend the voice had been digital distortion, but deleting it changed nothing in the room. The room already knew I had heard it, and that knowledge felt shared. The next day at work should have diluted everything. Offices are designed to flatten terror into fluorescent routine. Instead, I found a red foam clown nose sitting on my keyboard when I arrived. No one in the office admitted placing it there. People laughed with easy uncertainty, the way adults laugh when they think discomfort is a harmless prank rather than an invitation. I threw the nose away in the restroom trash. 10 minutes later, it was back on my desk, balanced neatly on a report I had not printed. Nobody had crossed my aisle. The security camera near the elevators was dark for maintenance. The whole floor suddenly felt stage bright, too exposed to be safe, as if every cubicle had become a seat facing me. Then I started noticing smiles where there should have been neutral faces. A coworker's lipstick seemed to reach too far at the corners. A meeting room reflection bent one grin wider than the mouth making it. Someone in accounting looked amused through the glass without any sound reaching the room. None of it lasted long enough to prove. That made it stronger. By lunch, I understood that ordinary places did not weaken the clown. They fed it. A circus would have been easier because you expect performance there. In an office, every harmless object becomes a better disguise. Cubicles, break rooms, elevators, parking garages. The clown did not need spectacle. It needed routine because routine is where you stop preparing to be watched. That evening I drove to the old fairground by the river because fear eventually demands ritual. If a place feels like the origin, visiting it seems like control, even when logic says otherwise. The lot was empty except for weeds, wire fencing, a collapsed ticket booth, and one rusting trailer shell left near the field like a forgotten tooth. Inside the trailer, I found costume trunks, rain-damaged posters, dead carnival bulbs, and one cracked mirror framed in peeling gold paint. Most of the cloth inside had rotted into colorless strips. One costume remained nearly whole, oversized shoes, striped sleeves, and a stiff white collar. The headpiece was missing, but the smell of grease paint felt recent. There was writing on the mirror hidden beneath years of dirt. I wiped the glass with my sleeve until the sentence emerged in scratched, trembling letters. A clown is what stays smiling after the person is gone. Reading it did not feel like discovery. It felt like overhearing a truth the room was embarrassed I had finally understood. Outside, muddy footprints circled the trailer. Large shoe prints rounded at the toe, too fresh for the weather. They led not toward the road, but down to the riverbank. I followed until the tracks ended at the waterline where one final print faced directly back toward me, as if someone had stood there patiently waiting for my flashlight to find it. I should not have gone home after that, but fear narrows choice until routine starts masquerading as wisdom. The building felt unusually warm when I stepped inside. The hallway smelled stronger than before, sweet and damp. My apartment door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. That certainty arrived first, and panic came rushing after it like a delayed crowd. Nothing looked stolen or dramatically disturbed. The couch, books, dishes, and table all sat where they belonged. Yet every object seemed fractionally restaged, angled for an audience instead of a life. A smiley-face mug had been turned toward the room. A framed photo leaned just enough to suggest a grin. Even the curtains looked arranged. Then I heard a single soft squeak from the bedroom. Rubber against floor. Slow, careful, almost polite. I stood in the hallway telling myself it could be the bed frame or a settling shoe. None of those excuses mattered because my body had already translated the sound as arrival, and translated it perfectly before thought could interfere. When I reached the bedroom, the closet doors were open wide. Every shirt and coat inside had been turned outward, sleeves hanging like waiting arms. On the bed lay a folded circus flyer I had never seen before, old paper carrying a fresh ink smell. Across the front, in bright, cheerful letters, it said, "Tonight the audience is only you." I did not see the clown then, and that made the next hour worse. Presence without form is harder to resist than presence with a body. I covered the mirrors, left every closet open, and sat on the couch listening. Leaving the apartment felt impossible because turning my back on the rooms seemed exactly what the rooms wanted me to do. The sounds came from impossible places. A tiny bell near the kitchen sink, a fabric rustle in the bathroom, a low chuckle from the heating vent that stopped the moment I stood. The apartment was no longer one space. It had become a collection of stages, each prepared for a separate entrance, each refusing to reveal the full actor. Then the clown borrowed memory. From the hallway I heard my father's voice saying the exact line he used when I was 7. "There is nothing in the closet." The sentence nearly worked until it ended with a quiet inhale that did not belong to him, followed by a smile in the voice so obvious I could hear it. That was when I understood the clown was not simply appearing in spaces. It was shaping itself around whatever each place needed to become unbearable. At the fairground it used spectacle, at the office it used performance. In my home it learned intimacy. It learned how to sound like reassurance while standing one breath away from threat. Near midnight the power flickered once, then held. In that single interruption I saw a face in the black reflection of my television. White forehead, red mouth. One eye slightly higher than the other, not from comedy but concentration, as if it were studying which version of me would finally break first. When the light returned, the face was gone. I turned toward the hallway and saw the clown standing there at last, half in shadow, half in weak apartment light. The costume was not colorful anymore. It looked water-stained, gray, and heavy with age. But the smile was fresh, wet-looking, almost newly painted, as if every other part of the costume had decayed only to preserve that single expression. It did not rush me. It only watched with its head tilted slightly, one gloved hand resting against the wall exactly where the painted smile had been on my neighbor's floor. I finally understood that its stillness was never passive. It was an invitation, a dare, a method of letting your fear walk the remaining distance on its own. When it took one step forward, the rubber shoe squeak sounded exactly like the file I had deleted. Again it whispered, not with its mouth but with the whole room. The walls seemed to smile back in reflected light. The doorway behind it darkened. I knew then that this was not a visit. It was a rehearsal repeated until I learned my assigned role. Weeks later, even after moving, the fear kept behaving like a routine rather than a memory. I would enter a grocery store and feel watched before seeing anyone. I would hear a child laugh 2 aisles away and tense because the rhythm sounded practiced, too deliberate. Ordinary places did not cure the clown. They gave it more neutral backgrounds to stand against. I started checking security mirrors in convenience stores, elevator ceilings, office lobby glass, and train windows not because I expected to catch a full figure, but because reflections had become dishonest in the exact way the clown preferred. A smile too wide, a face arriving a second before the body, movement behind me that vanished when I turned with enough confidence to demand proof. Sleep changed next. Dreams no longer showed circuses or bright tents. They showed waiting rooms, elevators, laundromats, and school corridors all empty except for the sense that someone cheerful had just stepped out of frame. I would wake with the certainty that I had laughed in the dream, and that the laugh had not sounded like mine. The worst discovery was how quickly other people dismissed small clues. A coworker found white makeup on a copier lid and blamed toner dust. A landlord heard squeaking shoes on concrete and blamed mice in the walls. The clown seemed to survive by making every sign of itself just weak enough to be mocked, because ridicule protects fear until fear has time to mature. Eventually, I understood that the clown did not only want to be seen. It wanted to be half-believed. Full belief creates action. Total disbelief creates distance. But half-belief keeps people in place. It makes them stay in the apartment, finish the shift, ride the last bus, check the closet one more time, and give the smile enough time to learn their habits. That may be the final trick behind the painted grin. It does not force itself into your life like a monster breaking glass. It enters as a suggestion and survives as a pattern. By the time you understand the pattern, it already knows your rooms, your routes, your memories, and the exact expression you make when you finally realize the joke has always been on you. I wish I could describe the next seconds in a clean order. I cannot. I remember backing away. I remember laughing once by accident because terror sometimes exits through the wrong door. I remember the clown seeming pleased by that sound, as if my fear had finally matured into the exact expression it had been waiting to see reflected from a human face. The next memory is morning. The apartment looked almost normal except for wet footprints across the kitchen tile and a bright red smile painted from corner to corner on the bathroom mirror. Beneath it, in small careful letters, was the sentence from the trailer made personal at last. The person is gone, the smile remains. I moved out a week later. New locks, new city, new rooms without closets whenever I could manage it. It made no real difference. Sometimes I catch my reflection smiling a fraction too early before I feel anything close to happiness. Sometimes strangers on trains look amused before their eyes even meet mine. Sometimes I hear squeaking shoes in empty stations. So if you ever see a clown standing still longer than a person should, do not comfort yourself by assuming it is only someone in costume. Costumes come off, makeup washes away. But some smiles are not disguises. Some smiles are what remains after the person has already been replaced by the thing that learned how to wear them. If this video on clowns unsettled you, leave a like and subscribe for more dark stories, phobia horror, and slow burn nightmares. It helps the channel grow and tells me to keep making videos that turn familiar fears into something much harder to forget.